Welcome to another Drago Dog Walk Talks. Drago? Drago? Rядом. Yeah, well, he's busy doing his thing. It is the 7th of June. That's the problem working with animals. They're not the best actors. So they don't always run on cue. And summer has returned, finally. It's like 29 degrees today. So it was 20 by 9 in the morning. Came out to mow the lawn. So, okay, we're going to turn away. And yes, we're back walking. For those of you who are wondering why I have this angle, not the best angle on my face, once more, it's for non-geolocating. Pretty hard to geolocate clouds and some branches. On the other hand, about anything else, including a tree line, is not very difficult to geolocate, interestingly enough. The AI is good enough at crunching images and image recognition to take care of issues like that. So we avoid geolocation for various obvious reasons, including being on the Ukrainian Nazi murder, death, kill list that's registered out of Langley, Virginia, right beside the CIA. Well, translation, the Nazi CIA murder, death, kill list. That has plenty of Americans, by the way, on it too, including politicians, interestingly enough. Yes, that's the kind of world we live in. So, what are we talking about? I've got the Caucuses on my mind. No, that is not a disease. That is a geolocation, geopolitical location, geographical location. We will begin, with Azerbaijan, but we'll be mixing in with Armenia and Georgia too, because it's all part of this game. So, the tensions are escalating. As I mentioned on the Durin today, when we were filming, tensions are very quickly escalating. The advisor, or the head of the Azerbaijani diaspora in the Moscow province, Ismailov, I think was his last name. I gotta look it up to tell you. I'm bad with names. That's the only problem. So this guy's been head of the diaspora since 2018. He's been an advisor on and off to Sobyanin, who's the mayor of Moscow. And he's been in Russia since the late 90s. He had his citizenship revoked. That's right, revoked. And he's been deported for life. And it's escalating. Those the liberals, the programmers or whatever that the Azerbaijanis collected up, beat the crap out of, and then videotaped as drug dealers. Yeah, well, Moscow's answering. The sweeps are getting wider. There's a lot more Azerbaijanis going illegals and semi-illegals. They're going to be going home, which is nothing good for Aliyev. Because if he gets, the country's got with less than 10 million people in it. There's about 2 million Azerbaijanis living in Russia. So if about 200, 300,000 of these legal, semi-legals, illegals get shipped back permanently, because now everything's being biometrics. They're no longer just being shipped back and they can come back, change their passport, change their name, change their passport, come back. Fingerprint, eye scans, and so on. They ain't coming back. So all these guys are going to get dumped to Azerbaijan. They ain't got jobs. They don't have jobs waiting for them. They've got no money, and they're going to be angry. So Aliyev is going to have a problem like that just on his own, right off the bat. On top of that, because this is not the end of it, property confiscations, larger sweeps. It comes out that Aliyev's son, Junior, there owns a $35 million mansion on Rublyovka, which is the street where all the rich people have their big mansions. $35 million. And he's such a cheapskate, he didn't pay his property taxes, which is $12,000. $12,000. He paid part of it, but he wouldn't pay the other half. I guess it's just, the $12,000 too far. So, interestingly enough, that is grounds for confiscation if he refuses to pay. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, so the son of the king, the Prince Junior of Azerbaijan, owns a $35 million mansion in Moscow. This is in Moscow city limits. So just to make that clear. That's something right there. Azerbaijan has declared that it is no longer going to be having any Russian language schools operating. They're all going to be closed down, which only, of course, damages its own position, because they've used those Russian language schools and the people coming out of those Russian language schools to then push them into Russia to set up businesses, and probably set up business. If they run like Turkey, then they're setting up businesses on with government help, and then they're monopolizing those businesses where they can, but they're working still in the interests of Azerbaijan, because that's how Turkish businessmen work. Once I watched a really interesting documentary on why there are no French grapes in French grocery stores, because most of those grocery store chains are owned by Azerbaijanis, and by Turks, and they import Turkish grapes. Yeah, on that level of insanity, which answers a lot of questions why some of these construction companies that used to operate, they were Turkish until the last spat with Turkey and they got closed down, were using importing Turkish labor and even importing Turkish cement. You know, Russia mass manufactures cement because they're sponsored by Turkey, and they not only support the Turkish political position, but of course the Turkish economy by importing everything. All that got closed down in Russia. A lot less of that. Foreign competition sponsored by foreign monies. So things as they heat up, Russia returned the favor to Aliyev by taking out 2 oil refineries that are in Ukraine. And everybody's been asking, why these oil refineries weren't taken out from the beginning, why they were still working. Now it's obvious, because from the political side, they were trying to hold relations with Azerbaijan, which was a pointless matter, I guess, because Azerbaijan was actively supporting Ukraine with weapons and ammunition. So there's that. Now those 2 refineries have been destroyed, got bombed last week, and not only were they taking oil from Sakor, which is the Ukrainian oil gas company, directly feeding those 2 oil refineries, just like they were feeding the Haifa oil refinery, which has been heavily damaged, if not destroyed, by Israel. You've also got the problem of these 2 oil refineries are directly owned by Sakor, which directly feeds the pocket of Aliyev. So his income just took a big hit, a really big hit, and he's not happy for obvious reasons. But that's how the game gets played. And finally, we shut down these 2 oil refineries that are feeding the Ukrainian war machine. Yeah, this has been a very odd war or conflict with things like that going on. So, well, that explains at least that, why and how. Partially. Why and how some of these things are happening. Anyways, so we're watching how this is escalating. Now, as we know, Azerbaijan is surrounded by enemies on all sides. The only enemy that's got a frenemy right now is Armenia, and that may be changing soon. So we're talking now about Armenia and Pashinyan, the anti-Armenian. That's the new nickname. You have the Antichrist. Well, this is the Antichrist's little helper, the anti-Armenian. Satan's little helper. Satan. Yeah, well, he's definitely not a Christian. So he's arrested 2 archbishops, throwing them in jail because they protested the things he's doing. Not only did he lose 2 wars with Azerbaijan on purposely, he gave up all pretenses on Gorno-Karabakh fully, and then blamed Russia for not defending Gorno-Karabakh. I'm sorry, whose claim are we supposed to defend? Our own? Because, he fully gave up his claim on Gorno-Karabakh. And allowed the Armenians there to be ethnically cleansed. Some were mass murdered, others, the majority were just pushed out. So we have that. And now, yeah, he's Erdogan's and Aliyev's new best friend. Constantly meeting with them, laughing with them. I mean, these are the guys that he gave away all claims and the chunk of his, he's getting ready to give away a chunk of his country. So there's 6 villages in the south that he's about to give away, because they want those for a corridor linking Azerbaijan to its enclave on the other side of Armenia, which would give a direct, very narrow but direct border with Turkey. America is, of course, in this. Trump wants an American company to manage that corridor, which I'm sure Erdogan is too thrilled with that idea. But, you know, if it's anti-Christian, America's got to be in there somewhere. You got Pashinyan, who's more than happy to give up Christian villages, to have them cleansed, because there aren't going to be any Armenians left in these villages, for his buddies in Azerbaijan. So Pashinyan is not just, and this doesn't just end in Pashinyan's anti-Armenian stance. Oh, no. There's much more to this. So afterwards, it's now come out that Pashinyan is getting ready to open the gates for Azerbaijanis to immigrate into Armenia. So starting with those that lived there before the collapse of the Soviet Union, and both sides exchanged populations, basically. At gunpoint, but yes, they did. But so Armenians are being ethnically cleansed, and Armenia is not going to be settled with 1 million or so Azerbaijanis. And the Mufti of Azerbaijan has already declared that soon all the Azerbaijani Muslim holy sites will be reestablished inside Armenia. So Armenia is doing the full Kaghanat. Right? It's soon to become part of either Turkey or Azerbaijan, taken over. And Armenians are mostly, at least so far, have been mostly asleep at the wheel. While their anti-Armenian is giving away, quite literally, their entire future. And he's going against the church. He doesn't want the church. I don't think he's not Christian. Whether he was baptized or not, I have no idea. But he's absolutely not Christian. And he's doing everything he can to destroy the church. Checking for ticks. So on top of that, he's obviously now going to flood Armenia with Azerbaijanis. So who will more than likely get the police roles and other roles to enforce his rule as a viceroy for either Erdogan or Aliyev, which I know is going to bring a revolution. I am betting, because of things I've been told by people that are very much so in the know, end of summer, beginning of fall, there's going to be a probably bloody regime change inside of Armenia. And the Russian government the Russian government at this point has played white and fluffy. We don't interfere in the internal affairs of other countries. Well, this has been a disaster. This whole policy stance has been a disaster. For 30 years it's been a disaster. For the simple reason is we don't interfere, but everyone else does. So you've got everyone else interfering in these countries' internal affairs, and we're just standing by. And the people that are loyal to Russia are getting swept aside, and the enemies of the very people are being put in power, like the anti-Armenian Pashinyan. So there's that. So I think Moscow's finally decided enough of being white and fluffy. It's time for real politic. And God hope we finally do go down this road, because this guy has got to go, and his whole government has got to go. They are quite literally absolute Judases to a degree that's just incredible. So yeah, so I am expecting Pashinyan will be yesterday's news. Ditched like an old pair of underwear, if you may, soon enough, because he's gone just so far that even the liberal Armenians are starting to see him as an absolute traitor, and he is. I mean, these are people that are actually, and the message he's giving them, you know, Russia is using us as a forepost in its civilizational war. Well, we don't need that. We just need to forget about the church, because it's evil. It's against the betterment of Armenia. And we need to forget about the genocide of Armenians and just put it behind us. And we need to join the Turkish world, because that's civilization. I mean, this is the type of person that literally the message that they're exposing onto the population. And while that will probably work quite well with liberals, because liberals are like that, no matter what flag is attached to their birthplace, they're always like that. It's a mental disease, liberalism. The rest of the people are going to go, no. And unlike the Azerbaijani diaspora that works for Azerbaijan inside of Russia and other countries, the Armenian diaspora, while of course never forgetting its homeland, also moves along and supports its present or new homeland, Russia. Much more loyal. And they, of course, don't want Armenia to disappear and become just another Khaganate again after 200 years of not being part of, as a vassal to one of the Islamic states around it. So there's that. So I think Pashinyan is going for a bridge too far. And that bridge is going to collapse on him, and it's going to crush him in the end. And good. And when that happens, there's going to be a whole new problem for the Azerbaijanis. Because effectively, except for the little enclave that has a small bit of border with Turkey, they will be cut off. And if Russia actually goes in and enforces those territories, the Turks aren't going to go to war with Russia. And if they go to war with Russia along that border, they have a huge amount of problems. As in, their army is going to die in place up in those mountains, just like in World War I, where they came in with an army that was 4 times larger than the Russian force in the Caucasus. They got blocked in the passes, and 2/3 of them froze to death. Yeah, that'll be about a repeat of that one, of that monumentally genius war plan. So, going further, Georgia, of course, is now waking up, Republic of Georgia, to the fact that Azerbaijan holds a certain amount of territory, including some very ancient monasteries, Georgian monasteries. They've remembered that little fact, and that Azerbaijan is actively destroying traces of Georgian culture. You got to remember, the Azerbaijani Turks, as all Turks, they came from the Altai Mountains to begin with. The Western Altai, which is in Russia, and partially in Kazakhstan. And they settled, they didn't call themselves Turks. The Turks was just the people in general. They had different tribes, like the Ottomans. The Ottomans had conquered the other Turks in Asia Minor, along with the remnants of the Eastern Roman Empire. So, but now Erdogan is creating this pan-Turkic world, right? So in the pan-Turkic world, he wants to create the super Turkic state, from Constantinople east to the Altai Mountains. Oh yeah, and carve out 1/3 of Russia for himself. Yeah, and yeah, the authorities are finally starting to wake up to this little fact. It's just, instead of just ignoring it and going, yeah, they have fantasies. No, these people are very actively promoting it, working on it, corrupting the leaders of Central Asia, at least from the Turkic countries in Central Asia, to move their pan-Turkic, their pan-Turkic world forward. On top of that, you've got the Israelis, who anywhere you look where there's conflict in these areas, there's Israeli fingerprints all over it. Mossad has been very active with Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan is a client state, basically, of Israel also. Israel and Turkey. Don't think those two countries are at odds. And they're working very closely with the Azerbaijanis. And against Russia, amongst other things. The Israeli government, even though about 1/3 of the population is from Russia, much of the Israeli government despises Russia immensely. They despise it no less than the Nazis in Kiev despised Russia. So, the excuse was, well, there's 2 million Russian speakers in Israel. And that's true, but out of those 2 million Russian speakers, people that hold any kind of loyalty to Russia are a very small minority. The majority, they just speak Russian. Sure, they'll run to Russia if things go to shit. They'll like those others, they'll remember their passports that they've thrown away into somewhere at the bottom of a suitcase. But other than that, no, they don't hold any loyalty to Russia. And it would be ignorant to believe that they do. Yes, there's a loop of money that's going back, investment money into Russia from Israel, just like it goes into Azerbaijan. There is a problem with that, obviously, security-wise. It does create certain issues. But these are not people who are loyal to Russia, ever have been loyal to Russia, or ever will be loyal to Russia. Nope. So far, clean. That's good. So yeah, so there's that little issue. Домой хочешь? Далеко ушли. Еще далеко идти. So, what do we do? And on the side of, well, I don't know if this is true or not, but Erdogan, oh no, sorry, Erdogan's, Aliyev's mother is rumored to be Jewish, from the mountain Jews that live in the Caucasus, in most of the Caucasus, throughout the Caucasus, and his daughter-in-law is supposed to be at least half mountain Jewish by her father's side. Again, I don't know how much this is true, so I can't say this is, but this is the word that is on the street, anyways, that the people say. Either way, he's got very close ties to Israel, very close ties. So any of those diasporas working for Azerbaijani intelligence are equally working for Mossad, which is equally working for SBU, CIA, and it's created a very, very big issue on the safety of Russia itself internally. One of the things that really tripped off the security services in Ekaterinburg, and there's quite a few metallurgical plants and other things in and around, and not too far from Ekaterinburg, including Uralvagon Zavod to the north of Ekaterinburg, about 2 hours away, where they're making tanks as well as train cars. So that's an issue that's an area that's very sensitive, that the Western spies really, really want to get into. So what we've got as an issue here is, besides security, what really tipped everybody off that we've got big problems is that the first 3 guys that got arrested, and two other guys were killed during their arrest because they resisted arrest, opened fire, and they were put down. There was a guy by the name of Ibrahim, who represented the Persian diaspora, the Persian Azerbaijani diaspora. Yes, there's a Persian Azerbaijani minority that's oppressed, and he was representing the diaspora here in Russia. This is a 71-year-old guy. He gets kidnapped, disappears. Nobody asks for money, and then about a week later, he reappears, resurfaces, but now in Azerbaijan, in the hands of the Azerbaijani security services. So obviously he was kidnapped, and he was kidnapped by these guys from the diaspora, one of these mobs or organized crime syndicates, who also control a lot of the Russian markets, Russian food markets, places like that. You know, there was at one point in Moscow that Sobyanin cleaned up, there were just all these kiosks everywhere up and down the streets. A lot of times you couldn't even see the streets you're walking on in central Moscow. This is back in the 90s, early 2000s. So all these little kiosks and such selling whatever, and a lot of it was extremely unsanitary, where they were selling food. And the government went in, cleaned it all up, closed them all down, removed them so you could actually see the streets again, because they were all legally in place. Well, the liberals all started screaming that, oh, the evil Putin regime is against small business. And then it comes out that 80% of these kiosks, and which almost all the time were illegal immigrants working, had no right to be in Russia. Hold up. Had no right to be in Russia. It turns out 80% of these kiosks were owned by one Azerbaijani mafioso. So, you know, that's the level of corruption, and that's the level of penetration. Now, in Yekaterinburg, it wasn't the local police services that got involved, because they've been either paid off or they get threatened to look the other way. No, you know, this is typical what mafia does anywhere with police. They either kill them, threaten their families, or pay them off, buy them off to be able to do whatever it is that they're doing. So he's playing in the grass, which is why we stopped. Cooling down. Yeah, I mean, it is warm. It is warm. Пойдем? Пойдем? So, and that's what they were doing. So this came at a federal level. So the federal security services got involved, and this is why all this went through. So this is the level we're at dealing with. So things are going to only get worse before they get better. And I don't think this time around it's going to pass that easily with just talks. Azerbaijan has shown itself to be not just an enemy, but an enemy. A serious enemy with a serious penetration into Russian security and safety. So this is a big problem. This is a big problem that needs to get cleaned up. And yes, I think, and while Aliyev holds a tyrannical grip on Azerbaijan, I think if you return 200,000, 300,000, 400,000 of his countrymen back to him, that's going to cause him huge headaches, and maybe even overthrow the government, a color revolution of sorts from the Russian side as a present. That definitely could be something that we could see happening. So we'll see. So now on to a little bit of clown world. Mark Rutti-Tutti, Color Me Fruiti, gave an interview to CNN, or to one of their journalists anyways. So, you know, you gotta wonder what these people are snorting, or just projecting. But, you know, you Europeans are gonna have to go bankrupt, because you gotta feed your war machine, because NATO has to take on China. That's right. The North Atlantic Treaty Organization is going to go to the West Pacific and take on China. With what forces? Who the hell cares? Just give us your money, you dumb serfs. They're going to take on China, and they've got to build up, also take on Russia, because apparently, Rutti-Tutti believes that when China decides to invade Taiwan, it will give the order to its junior partner, note, and he says junior partner, Russia. And this is something, by the way, that the West constantly is trying to divide Russia and China by trying to play on this Russian sense of pride that, oh, you're now the junior partner. Well, no, they can't. You see, in the West, they can't understand equal partnership with anybody. You're either owned or you own. That's it. That is the Western mentality. You're either owned or you own. There are no equal partnerships in the West because they're incapable of doing it. Never have been. That's why America doesn't have any allies. It has vassals. Some of those vassals have vassals. But other than that, the West has always been a feudalistic system in that matter, especially with when dealing with other countries. You know, basically they're bannermen of the American master. And some of those bannermen have bannermen, to say it in a feudal manner. So yeah, they're constantly trying to play in that Russia is the junior partner with China. Oh, Lord, good Lord. But yeah, apparently China will give the order. Yeah, we're following with this. And Russia will invade NATO to take NATO's eyes off of Taiwan, while China grabs Taiwan, and probably, of course, you know, why stop at Taiwan? And probably go Philippines, Indonesia, Malaysia, and right up and take all of Australia. Because, you know, why not? We're playing fantasy games. Tutti Frutti, Rutti-Frutti, in this case, is going all in. He's going all in stupid. This is the same guy that said Lavrov has been foreign minister since Jesus Christ. Now, I don't think that this guy even understands Jesus Christ, or who Jesus Christ was, because Rutti-Fruiti is not a Christian. Whether or not he ever got baptized is a whole different issue. He is an anti-Christian, just like the vast majority of the Western ownership class. We're not going to call them leadership class. They're not leaders. They don't know a concept of how to lead, but they are owners. They have the big money, whether they're the first line players or second line players or third line players, they're attached to the big money, and they're part of the ownership class. The golden 0.5% in the future 500 million population. Yeah, by the way, when they tell you it'll be the golden 500 million or the golden billion, we'll get rid of the rest of humanity. You know, the golden part comes in that you would get to live. There's your golden. The real golden would be about a 1 to 2 million top, with a maybe 20, 30 million, so 40 million layer of educated servant class. You know, the bodyguards, the police, and things like that. And then the rest are just gonna be the feudal slaves working on the plantation factories. You could do it, I guess, in the future with robots, but I think these people enjoy knowing that other human beings till their soil and kiss their feet and grovel before them. I mean, these are people that didn't grow up from the feudal ages. They just kept passing on generation of this insanity. But that is the West. That is Western culture in a nutshell. The real Western culture that's underneath that thin veneer of Renaissance and everything else that they sell to the serfs. Least we forget, as late as the 1910s and 1920s, countries like Britain had sleeping ropes for their peasants. Do you know what a sleeping rope is? If you don't, I'll explain. Or you could look it up on Google. There's lots of photographs of them. Sleeping rope is a rope that's hung up on some building where you rent a piece of that rope to hang your body on and sleep. That way you're not laying on the ground where the rats can really get at you. You're either on your knees or standing up, slumped over this rope and sleeping. Yes. A lot of your ancestors actually lived that way. That's how they survived. Pathetic as that may sound, and this was in industrialized 1910s, 1920s England, and which is heading right back in that same direction, at least for the dhimmis, the dhimmi being the Christian English class. So that's our clown world insanity that we have, that Rutti-Tutti has decided to present. So to stop China and thus stop Russia from attacking NATO on China's command, you will give up your pensions, your medical plan, and anything else that keep you from being the serf whose life is 30 years long, 40 years long of toil for the master. Aren't you happy? Jeez, you should be happy. You get to live, or your kids will get to live, kinda, sorta. I mean, they'll get to exist. I don't know about the living part particularly, but they'll get to exist. And this is the future, the bright and happy future of the garden, of Borelia's garden that you're being promised. Aren't you excited? You should be. All right, that's enough of my talk. God bless. See you next time. Oh, and please, if you want to support my work, there's a Bitcoin wallet. Drop any size donation. Support my work by spreading this video to others. Like it, subscribe. Likey, subscribe. It gets the algorithm going too. No, I'm not monetized, and I couldn't be anyways because I'm in Russia. So any help would be appreciated, including just spreading the video. So cheers. God bless.